Who is the more impactful acquisition in 2023 for the Browns? So just this year, who will have a bigger impact, not who's more important in totality?
Yeah.
Tomlinson or Moore? You guys touch on it in totality.
Yeah.
But give me individually.
Before we get into that specific, Mike, I realized that when G and I gave big breakdowns on wide receiver versus D-line, we never got Jay's take on that.
Yeah, well,
I think Jay should give his take first before we get.
All right, that's because Aditi was in the queue and we had to move it on, and I didn't want to push her time back.
Yeah. You got to break the tie here.
Because we reframed the question, and it was which position group improved most.
Right.
So the biggest area of improvement has to be defensive line, because as a group, even with, and I know Clowney, you said Clowney as a run stopper, he was nothing last year. To me, he was just taking up a spot.
Right.
So if you're charting it on 0 to 100, with 100 being the most production you can get and 0 being no production, I would have had the defensive line at like 18 or 20. They were right,
awful. But in theory, I'm not saying use is what you think. You could go from 18 to 40.
So that's what I was going to explain.
As opposed to going from 50 to 100, which would be a bigger jump.
That's what I would explain. Okay. So first of all, the Browns receivers now is not 100.
No, I know. I'm just using that as an example.
I would just for round numbers, I would say I would put the DL at around a 20, and I would put the wide receiver group around a 50.
Last season.
Okay. I mean, I thought, again, the offense wasn't the problem.
No.
And Amari Cooper had a very good season. DPJ had a good season. Njoku had one of his best seasons, still not paid. It still wasn't the production that they're paying for.
I wasn't including Njoku in my analysis.
Yeah, I kind of.
He's a pass catcher,
you're right.
But yeah.
But I just think from where the defensive line started and where the wide receivers were, I think they both got better, but maybe the wide receiver jumped to a 75. So it's an increase of 25, but I think the defensive line jumped to a 60 or so. So I think that's more of a jump from where they were.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think the wide receiving.
I would have had
bad, but it wasn't.
I would say, to me, I would go, a defensive line has gone from a 20 to a 45.
So you're not really buying in on these.
Well, I think 45 is average, or just below average.
I hope we have
I think you could survive with that, from crap to below average.
Yeah.
And I still think with the draft and maybe some.
So where were the receivers, and where are they now?
Whereas I think the receivers were a 40 or a 45, and now they're a 75.
Okay, so a little bit better for the wide receiver.
Yeah. But it's close. I mean, listen, it's close.
Here's the big thing.
Yeah.
Both are discernibly better.
I would agree with that.
So that's Andrew Berry's job.
Yes.
His season starts the day the season ends.
Yeah.
And right now, if he had a win-loss record, I think he'd be about 7-3.
Absolutely.
I think he's hit on most of the things he's done. He's got a winning record, and hopefully then that will translate into the Browns next season, turning his wins
unfortunately, it's
into
all
real
on paper
wins.
right now.
It's all on paper.
And now the two biggest things, and we'll obviously talk about this as the summer goes along. There are two different things, two huge areas. The Browns defense and what scheme they'll run. And the huge one is, what does this new Kevin Stefanski playbook look like?
Yeah.
That is like, because that's the whole picture.
I remember. It's funny you say that, because last year, and we knew that Deshaun Watson was going to miss time. We didn't know yet he was going to miss 11 games. But I remember Jim Donovan, who always gives it straight, especially when he's not on air and we're having conversations. He tells me, he just unfiltered, boom, here it is.
Yeah.
And he doesn't call, if it's a pig, he calls it a pig. Last year, he came in after one of the days at training camp, and I said, what do you think? How they look? He's like, man, it's like watching a different team. This offense is different. They're running different schemes. The ball comes out of Watson's hands so crisp and so hard and so sharp. I don't recognize this team, and I don't recognize the plays they're running. A lot of stuff that we haven't seen before. And then the season started.
Right.
Is that?
And I'm like, wait a minute, I've seen all this before.
Is that because?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're going to find out.
Last thought on that before Mike does his read and we move on to the specifics.
Yeah.
Is that when you look at again, we bring these teams up all the time: Kansas City, Cincinnati, Buffalo. Their offenses, whether you're a fan or not, objectively, are tons of fun to watch.
They are, because they're
so
machines.
dynamic. Not every single time, but more often than not.
Yeah.
That's the goal. For the Browns offense to look like those offenses.
Yeah.
Mike?
And it is 12 o'clock, which means it's officially the lunch hour of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, and that is brought to us every day by Colleague Racing, the official NASCAR team of Northeast Ohio. Let's get into the specifics, fellas. Real quick, 5 minutes before we move to the Cavs.
Yeah.
Moore or Tomlinson? Which one has a bigger impact this year alone in their first year as a Cleveland Brown? The YouTube chat was 72% for Tomlinson, for the record.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Give me the exact question again, Mike, please.
Biggest impact, I think.
Bigger
was the phrasing.
impact
Yeah.
this year, not in the totality of their
You know what?
contract.
That
just
surprises
for
me
this
because
year.
usually the player that scores and touches the ball,
Facts.
fans tend to think that they have bigger impacts. It's not always true.
But I'll tell you,
But-
as a dude that put his hand in the ground for half his life, that's true. The guys who, and I had to learn myself. See, what you guys don't understand is, as a defensive lineman, I could be in my gap. I can be there. I can knock my guy off the ball. I can do everything requisite of me to be in the backfield. But there are 5 to 7 things that can happen that nullify anything I just did. 3-step drop, quarterback threw the ball. You're not even there. Maybe they ran play action. You didn't get into your pass rush. There's no pass rush. Maybe you were in your gap. The ball cut back to a guy who got cut off, and it looks like I did nothing because that guy got beat.
Yeah.
There's times where I'm playing inside. They run a toss play. If they're running outside zone, I'm never getting there. Like, sometimes I'm going to play defensive tackle, defensive end. I'm going to be subbed out. I'm not even a 3-down player. I could play 2 downs, 1 down.
Yeah.
Maybe we're playing a team that is not going to throw the ball all that much. Hey, the Atlanta Falcons just said, you know what? Let's just run the ball 14 times against you. So, contrary to popular belief, yes, I get what people are saying. Defensive tackles, you could be one of the best to ever do it. I'll give you Cortez Kennedy. Cortez Kennedy was one of the greatest defensive tackles I've ever seen play. Nobody knows who he is. You know why? Because he played for the Seattle Seahawks. They weren't very good. And you just don't notice.
Aaron Donald is like the one defensive tackle that gets the hype.
That gets
the
it.
other guys, they
Because he
don't
changes games.
But there's other guys who are really good. Nobody's Aaron Donald.
I think
but
the
there's other guys-
Bosa's change games.
Yeah.
Watt changes games.
Right, but those guys are all outside players.
Yeah.
Right? There's the guys in the middle, many of them make impact by just clogging up 2 or 3 offensive linemen.
Right.
And so it's not stats. Like, Tomlinson's not going to put up huge stats.
No.
Doesn't mean he's not, but you're right. Now, there's things on the offense that could, like if the quarterback Elijah Moore can run a perfect route, be wide open, and Watson can make a bad throw. There could be a penalty, but there's not as many things as there is with the defensive tackle, as you say,
he touches
which is
the
why
ball.
I agree with you. I think Elijah Moore, I think they're both going to make a pretty good impact on this team, and Tomlinson is, through this point in their career, has been a more productive player at his position than Moore has.
Right.
But I think Tomlinson is what he is. He's a good player, and I think he's going to be a good player. Now, maybe Schwartz will get him another level up, but I think Elijah Moore's upside, we don't know how good he can be.
Right, we don't.
I think Tomlinson, at the very least, is closer to his peak than Moore is. I think
Yes.
most people would
That's
agree with
fair,
that.
yeah.
And I think, well, how good can Moore be? I mean, again, he was drafted 35th.
So it's a clean sweep. We all disagree
think
with the chat.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I was surprised that the chat said
Yeah.
72% said that they think Tomlinson will have the bigger impact.
Right. Again, I think it's close. Certainly, Moore is going to have has the potential to have the more noticeable impact.
Sure.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean necessarily.
Unless you're playing at a Myles Garrett level, you mostly play your career in anonymity.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those guys, it's like offensive linemen. Don't
Yeah.
get called for holding. Don't get beat
Yeah.
on sacks. It
Right.
doesn't make you a superstar, but you rarely get noticed.
And you
Yeah.
don't
It's
notice.
the same at that position.
And especially defensive tackles, you only really notice the guys on your team.
Yeah.
Most of us don't realize how good the defensive tackles. If we ask most fans, how good are the defensive tackles on this random team? You'd be like, I don't know. I mean, outside of Aaron Donald and maybe 1 or 2 other guys, you wouldn't know it.
I'm going to ask you guys this. I just asked Earl here, and I'm curious what you guys think. Let's say Moore goes between 700 and 1,000 yards this season.
yeah.
Is
That's
that
a big gap, 700 to 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just say, but he has a very productive season as a
well,
secondary.
1,000
Just
is
say
way more
700.
productive than
Uses
700. but-
uses 700.
yeah.
We'll do 850. We'll pick
Okay,
the middle.
split the
He has
difference.
Okay.
850.
That's a good season
And
for him.
Tomlinson helps bring the Browns' defensive rushing yards against from 150 to 110. Cuts it down 40 yards. which
Oh,
is-
that's huge.
So just looking at those 2 statistics, which is a bigger impact on the outcome of the Browns
Well,
season?
here's the
That's hard to say.
No,
Yeah.
because when you say he helps bring them down, once again, playing the position, I'm just going to give you the real. Stopping a run is schematic. Stopping a run is not one person. stopping the run is I'm in my gap. The ball is ran. You got force players. You got players that are coming down in the box. There's guys who have cut back. All you have to do it based on the scheme. So if he's saying I dropped it, for 140 to 110, I can't necessarily say it was him. I would say it's Schwartz.
It could be Schwartz.
It's the scheme. Or it could be the fact that it's more cohesive defense.
And isn't it fair to say that Dalvin Tomlinson, at least on paper, will be the biggest concern for the other team's interior offensive line?
Oh, no question.
And thus, he could force a double team on him every play, but if the other guy doesn't make the tackle,
that's it.
It doesn't matter.
So say, for instance, like your defense, and I never liked this, the safeties, right? Grant Delpit is going to be the free player. I'm taking up 2. I got to make sure I don't get blocked and blown off, and I got to make sure the guard don't get to the linebacker.
Right.
Now, Grant Delpit is the free player. I've done all I could do.
Right.
If he misses a tackle,
it's in his hands now.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, so your impact was null and void.
Right.
Because the guy that you relied on to do his job after you did yours didn't do it. And that's what happened last year. You had guys doing their jobs on every play, but you had a lot of plays where there were guys that didn't do their job.
Now, Dalvin Tomlinson will probably do his job significantly better than the guy he's replacing, which will give them a better chance overall. But how consistently overall will the other guys do?
And that is why, just very quickly, they're coming out of 30 for 30 for the Baltimore Ravens. Right? That is the reason. That is the absolute reason why. When you have Saragusa and Adams, immovable objects, and you have a guy like Ray Lewis, who's a Hall of Famer, who's automatically going to do his job at the highest level and do more, and you have Ed Reed at the next level,
forget it.
They're not missing that tackle.
Right.
It's just not happening. Matter of fact, they may hit you in the backfield.
It's like Warren Sapp, Simeon Rice, Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Rondé Barber.
That's right.
It's over.
It's a wrap.
You're not getting no
yards.
yards.
You've got Hall of Famers at every level, and you're going to be a Hall of Fame all-time great defense.
We got a super chat from Donnie M., who is the voice of the chat, and he says, hey, fellas, we're banking on Tomlinson having some heart and not letting stuff like Atlanta happen again. So maybe that's where they're going.
You know, it's funny. Yeah, that's a great comment. Atlanta, for me, I know the busted plays killed us, and the onside kick against the Jets killed us. But the thorn in my side from last year was what Atlanta did.
Because they ran it 14 times in a row.
12 or 13 straight run plays, and all of them were for 8 yards or more. And they're doing it with guys that were on the practice squad on Tuesday of that week.
How humiliating
it
for the
was!
defense.
It was horrific. And you're watching it. After 6, I'm screaming, what are you doing? They kept coming to the line with the same exact formation.